there guys, this is me, Malorian, and today this will be a video talking about another mercenary jack, the Basher. Now, this comes from a viewer request where basically they like the idea of the Basher, but it's one of these ones where there's a lot of different nuances to the model. It's a very interesting jack, and so they're just kind of wondering, Malorian, can you talk about how it works and the best way to get it from being Jack Marshall to being in themes, blah 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 blah. So today that's what we're going to be talking about. So the Ghordson Basher is a mercenary Rulik heavy jack, so it can only be taken by the currently 3 Rulik casters, so either Ostrom, Gordon, or oh god, now I've run the one that Durgan, there you go, the one that nobody ever takes. But man, I'm going to do a video on Durgan just to try and talk him up to make up for saying that. But anyway, it's currently only be able to use by one of those 3. It's a heavy war jack, only 9 points, so pretty cheap. What you're getting for that though is speed 5, so it's a heavy. Strength 12, which doesn't really matter. Mat 6, Rat 4, that really doesn't matter. Defense 9, Armor 19, and it only really has one primary weapon, which is its battering ram, and it's a range 1 P+S 15. And if you're wondering what this guy looks like, it's this dude here. It's this funny little thing that you wonder, like, does he even have a head? But it's like tucked there down below. It's like a mega bunny, right? If you look at the other ones where there's like the gunner and the blaster, and those are like the baby bunny jacks, this is like the grown-up version. So, it's an interesting looking thing, and we haven't got to the interesting stuff yet, because that's all in the rules. Now, by the way, it has a pretty solid grid. It's not a full 36. It is a 28 box jack, so I mean, not too bad. It has a good healthy amount, but the main stuff comes in here from the rules. Now, the first interesting thing is that it has Flak Field. Now, in Flak Field, it can use it once per turn, anytime during its activation. When this model uses Flak Field, models in base to base with it suffer an unboostable POW 12 blast damage roll, and other models within 2 inches of it suffer unboostable POW 6 blast damage roll. This model is not affected by it because it'd be weird if you're blasting yourself. So really what this means is that even though it really just has the one initial attack, it can do a lot of extra damage because you get in there with a lot of infantry, and everything base to base usually is just dead unless it has boxes or really high armor. And then even stuff that's within 2 inches, if we're talking things you're only like armor 12 or something like that, on average you're killing them too. So it can be very deadly to infantry, and like I said, it's just any time during that activation. And we'll talk about some tricks around that in a second. Now, it has follow-up, so whenever this model slams an enemy model, immediately after the slam is resolved, this model can advance directly towards the slam model up to the distance the slam model was moved. So, where that's important is because it also has Grand Slam. And with Grand Slam, this model can make slam power attacks without spending focus. That's not too bad. Or being forced. Models slammed by this model are moved an additional 2 inches. So we're starting to see that this thing's got some pretty good slam capabilities coming up, and it's not even done yet because the battering ram attack that it has also has hard head, so this model can add this weapon's POW to its headbutt and slam power attack damage rolls. And so basically where normally you'd be looking at that strength 12, for most of the stuff it's just doing the P+S of 15. So it's not too bad. It's not like a heavy that's hitting at POW 19 or 18 or those things, but it's, for a 9-point heavy, not too bad when it's slamming for free and all this cool stuff. And, like the other Rulik jacks, it also has sturdy, so it can't be pushed. So that's the jack, that's what it is, and I mean, at the very first look at it, it's just a slam jack, right? You put it in there, it really wants to be getting that free slam every turn, but then it has some extra little things kind of put in there as well. So let's kind of talk about just what's on the card before we start bringing in some other things too. Now, with this here, you can do things where normally people will try and take your slam away from you. And by the way, if you can't remember how slams work, you have to move at least 3 inches, and whenever you're slamming an enemy model, you have to move directly towards them. So if you think of a line between middle of base, you have to go for that. So it's not like a charge where you have a little bit of give of where you want to be charging to. It is straight on, and you need at least 3 inches to make this happen. Now, one of the ways that some people will try and stop slams is by getting closer to you, and more particularly putting something right in your face. If you do that to a basher, it flak fields first and then just blast that thing away. And so that can be really great surprise for you. So if they run up and say, haha, this infantry's in your face, you can't slam, you just flak field, kill it, and then you can go and slam on your way. So that's awesome. But you don't have to even do it then. You could slam into a heavy that's around some other infantry, slam it off, and then you could do some damage around the things that are around you. Or, I mean, you might as well just keep on hitting that thing as well, because once you slam it, well, now it's knocked down, and your mat of 6 doesn't matter anymore, because you're just automatically hitting. And since you're slamming for free, you're getting to buy all those attacks. And even when you're not going against infantry, flak field can still do okay damage against a light or a heavy as well. So never forget to use that attack, even if you are going up against a heavy. But getting back to what we're saying, you could get into there, you could go and slam a heavy and then just follow up to it and then just keep on hitting it. Now, of course, it would be best if you can be slamming this model into something else, because, hey, if I can slam your heavy into your infantry, it's just free kills. But as well, if I can slam your heavy into an obstruction, into another larger base, or like a huge base, well, then you're going to be taking an extra dice of damage from that slam, because I'm going to be slamming you into something and getting that big damage roll. So that can be great. Now, with that, it is only POW 15 though. So one of the things you might want to do is put it with Gordon. He has a spell that's going to give something +4 strength. And all of a sudden now, this thing's POW 19. And that's a pretty big deal. So with POW 19s now, you're getting this free charge. Usually you'll hit. You can always boost a hit if you want to be sure. And then that's a POW 19 slam this thing's taking, and then you get to buy 3 more auto-hitting POW 19s as well. That can do some real damage to a heavy, so that's pretty serious stuff. And if you really need this to work with Ghordson, well, then you got his feet, you got the wall, so all of a sudden you're putting a wall behind the thing if you want. You can slam it into it for that big slam damage, or you can be using the feet so that you're moving things where you need them to set up that nice slam. If they're all in your face, you can move them back and then slam them even further with their lower defense, or if they're further away, you could pull them in a bit and then slam it. There's a lot of play you can do there with Ghordson. And always remember, with Ghordson, you can use the wall not just to put behind something to have something to slam into. You can use that wall to kind of catch things like a net for when you're using your feet. So if they were very careful to make sure that the jack and their caster is not lined up so you can slam things over the caster, you can just set up that wall so that when you slide things to the side, oh, what do you know, they line up just perfectly. Now, while we're talking about casters, that's also a very great thing you can do with this, is that the thing you're slamming into doesn't need to be necessarily the thing that you're buying attacks into. So let's say, for example, they got some high defense caster, and in front of it they got some jack. Well, your basher goes in, slams it over the caster. Now both of them are knocked down. You follow up into the caster, and now you can be buying attacks into that caster. So again, if we're talking Gordon and these are POW 19s, 3 of them into a knockdown caster, that caster is probably in a lot of trouble. Plus, again, with a caster, that auto-hitting POW 12 Flak Field will do some pretty good work as well. So again, we'll really look for getting more value from those slams, where you're using a target to slam over another, or you're slamming a target over something that you're wanting to be killing, or by something else that you want to be flak fielding. There's a lot of stuff you can be doing in here. And also, don't be just saying that you can only be slamming in to attack something. Sometimes you're just slamming things just to get it away, right? You could be having your basher back in your own zone and just bashing things out of your zone. You don't need to go and follow up and make attacks. You can just go and bash it out. Now, I think this is a good time where we can start talking about why you might actually want to be jack marshalling this thing. So if you jack marshal it, it doesn't get any focus. That sucks. But the Basher does get the slam for free. That's great. So you don't really lose that if you're being jack-marshaled. Well, the one jack-marshal order that really helps it the most is Hurry. Well, that lets it slam for free. Well, great, you had that anyway. But more importantly, you're getting +2 to hit on your slam. Now, when you do that and you're getting +2 to hit, in a way, that's not the best. You know, that's making it slamming at mat 8, and that sounds like that's fantastic. But if you had focus, a roll of die works out to an average of 3.5. So on average, that dice is going to be higher. Well, you could be saying that this Jack Marshall is free, so now you don't need to be worrying about that focus. But the way that Mark III works, if you were to slam for free, you still have your free focus that we could using to boost. So Jack Marshalling still isn't seeming that great. So Malorian, why do you say Jack Marshalling's good? Well, the reason why Jack Marshalling is good is because we have our Irregulars theme. And when you're in the Irregulars theme, you have flank with your Jack Marshal. So your Jack Marshal can run up to something that you want to slam. Then your Basher can go and slam it with the Hurry order. Now you're getting +2 to hit because of the order, +2 to hit because of flank, and now you're getting 4, which is not only higher than 3.5, but guaranteed. You know, that 3.5 coming from a dice, that's random. You never know when you're going to roll a 1, when you're going to roll a 6, but when you got flank and the Hurry order, you just know you're going to be getting that. And then all of a sudden now, because of flank, you also get an additional die of damage. Just imagine if you're slamming this into a wall now, and 1 extra dice for flank, 1 extra dice because I'm slamming you into something bigger or same size, and that's a pretty hefty hit. Especially again if we're saying if it's Gordon and a POW 19, but man, even at POW 15, that's going to do real damage to that other heavy. Now, you have to be really careful with Flak there, because if you go in there and then also Flak, you might also like Flak your buddy there, your Jack Marshal. So maybe don't be doing that. But this is where something where that package can be a very great defensive one for a defensive zone, right? All of a sudden something's trying to get at you. You run up to it, you slam it, it's going to go d6 +2, remember, because of Grand Slam, and now this thing's off, it's knocked down. If you can get the right angles, if you keep your Basher more center in the board, so it's trying to slam things away, you might slam things out of control range, and then it's just a really unhappy Jack trying to get back into your zone to contest. So that can be very, very powerful. Now, that's not the only theme that we have. We also have Hammer Strike, which can be very interesting for the Basher as well. And the reason for that is because in Hammer Strike, all of your jacks get repo. Sorry, all of your heavies get repo 3. And what that really means is that when you go and slam something to slam it away, not only are you sending that target d6 +2 away, but then after, you're getting to repo back. And all of a sudden you're getting to an area there where you can be slamming a target away and be in such a position that it cannot retaliate back against you. Again, we're talking about a random slam that could be anywhere from 3 to 8 inches. So that's a dangerous play and it might not always work, but you're now in that realm where you could be doing that, especially if they don't have the focus because they're out of control range, or you take out its cortex, so now it just has to shake the knockdown as opposed to, or more so forego an attack or movement to get rid of the knockdown as opposed to shaking it with a focus. You can be in a very, very good spot and be like, okay, you get up and move up, bam, I slam you again, repo back, and just do this over and over and over like a yo-yo. So pretty fantastic stuff. Now, where this gets complicated and very, very cool is then with Ostrom, because Ostrom has a lot of different spells and abilities which will really help out this Basher. Now, the first one of those is Energizer, the spell that he has. Now, what Energizer does is lets all the things in the battle group move, advance 2 inches. And that can be used in multiple ways. And one way, when we're doing this hit and run idea, you can slam something, repo back 3, Energizer back another 2. Those 2 inches are a big deal in trying to make sure that they can't go and get back at you. But that 2 inches could also be used aggressively. It means it could also be energizing up, so you can threaten an extra 2 inches, or more so for fixing. You know, if somebody has something so that they're, remember, you have to slam in a directly straight line, all of a sudden now you have 2 inches of play on either way with that Energizer to line it up just right. Or again, you need to go at least 3 inches. You might be using that Energizer just to putting yourself back a little bit so that now your slam is a full 3 inches and you're able to get that off. Again, maybe something ran up to engage you and it's now 1 inch away and it's like, haha, you can't slam me, and you move 2 inches back with Energizer, take a free strike, but now you're able to slam up, follow up, and do all the cool things you really want to do with this jack. And an Armor 19, and it has the way that it's grid set up, it's probably not going to have any systems crippled. It's a pretty cool grid where they have a Cortex all the way from like 2 to 5, and you have 3 different columns that the head's on, 3 different columns that movement's on. It's very hard to cripple something here with a single free strike, unless you're taking it from a Colossal or something like that, which you wouldn't want to be slamming anyway. So Energizer can be very good at trying to either hit and run further or setting up that perfect slam. The other thing that Ostrom can do is have the feet, and what the feet does is adds 3 speed and Pathfinder. So again, that's just adding more threat to what you can do. It also makes it so that if there's any terrain that's going to be wrecking your slam, well, that's just going to be giving you basically extra threat for that as well. So whereas normally this speed 5 thing, you know, can only go so far for its slam, when you're adding a potential 5 extra inches between the Energizer and the feet, this thing can be coming from, you know, downtown and getting you. It could be very doing this also in a surprise fashion, where they're looking at you like, ha ha ha, you tucked your basher behind that building or behind that whatever, you can't go and charge me now. Well, all of a sudden now I Energizer to the side and I'm zipping off somewhere else. And with this long distance because of feet, and maybe they thought I couldn't get to you because there's a wall in the way. Well, now because of Pathfinder I can slam over the wall. So there's a lot of fixing that Ostrom does. It's almost like, you know, Ostrom's good or something, but there you have it. Now, one of the things that you have to watch with the Basher here is that Bulldoze has a very interesting interaction. Now, the way that Bulldozer works is that when you actually go and move into something, you can move it, push it 2 inches directly away. So if you're thinking about this for a slam, at first you're like, haha, I'm going to slam you, push you 2 inches, and then slam you D6 plus 2. But that's not actually how the way it's going to work. You would touch it base to base, it would move 2 inches, and now it's out of range for you to actually go and make your slam attack. So you have to watch out because that's not how that works. However, one thing you could do is that if you got base to base when you made your slam, slammed it D6 plus 2 away, you could then follow up, and then that movement, which is then again taking you into base to base, could then go and bulldoze it further. So if your goal is just to go and move this thing as far away as possible, that is something you can do. Now basically you're slamming something D6 plus 4 away. So if you're all in just trying to move something as far away as possible, that's where you might want to do that. Something else I should explain here as well, of something that doesn't work, is also the idea of repoing and then doing your Flak Field. I've seen some people wanting to do that, where they slam something, repo over here, and now I'm going to be doing my Flak Field, now that I'm in the middle of all this infantry. Note that you repo at the end of your activation, so there's no Flak Fielding after, or at least as far as I understand it. You know, I'm just some Joe here on the internet. I could be wrong. If you have any corrections to this, you can feel free to put it down below. But you can see here that there's a lot you can do with this caster. When we're getting back to Durgan, I'm not really sure what you're supposed to be doing with Durgan here with him. I mean, Gunfighter doesn't really do anything. AoE feat doesn't do anything. Spells don't really do tons crazy much, but Durgan loves to shoot things dead, and if nothing else, you can always be thinking that sometimes that slam is not to go and knock down a caster so you can follow up and be attacking it. It's not to move something away. Sometimes it's just to knock something down so the other guys can shoot it. So do know that that's also another tactic you can be taking as well, and know as well that even if you do go and slam that heavy into their caster, you follow up, you flak field it, you buy your other attacks into it, and now it's like, oh no, I can't shoot it because it's engaged. Well, it's knocked down, so it actually doesn't matter whatsoever. You're basically not trying to roll ones at that point. So do know that if you do have a shooting element to this as well, the fact that you're following up into a target isn't really a problem whatsoever. So there you go, there's the Basher, a very, very interesting jack, and one you just don't see a lot of, which is, I think, for the most part, because it's only in Mercs, and it's only Rulic. I think if this is one of those jacks that was for all mercenaries, you might see some interesting times you're taking it, like with a freebooter, but because it's only Rulic, you just don't see it that much. And then you might be seeing it with Ostrom, who's pretty popular, but then Ostrom's usually running different things. So I think it's from a narrow field, but I mean, if you're a person who's playing mercenaries and want to try something else out, the Basher can be something that's very interesting. Or if you're a person who's playing against mercenaries, you really need to know what that Basher does when you're placing your things down, because you don't want to be surprised by that, come from downtown slam, or that Flak Field killing off all your infantry, or any of that other stuff. So there you have it. Thanks for watching. Again, if you have any corrections or your own tactics you'd like to put down below, I always love having this continued conversation. So thanks for watching. We'll catch you later. Bye.